video was made possible thanks to the support of assetprotection.au, supporting security professionals achieve more with the Aerotech range of products.
Good morning. Today is Thursday, the 9th of April, and Aerotech have released the new Discovery firmware version 2.1, and today I'm going to go through some of the features, do the update, and have a look at what's new. First we have in the update is status of doors, areas, inputs, relays and more, control of doors, areas, inputs, relays and more, and diagnostics available. So they've got more advanced diagnostics. There's a link on here which takes you to the generic Discovery webpage, but got to dig in a little deeper to find the actual market release notes, and we'll go through those now. So if we click on the link from the LinkedIn post, it takes us just to the Discovery landing page. From here, to have a look at the market release notes, we want to go Resources Release Notes, and then here we've got the TSX10000 being the latest version released today. Looking through the release notes, one of the biggest new features is Discovery Browser via the UltraSync portal. For those of you who don't know it, you can set up your fleet of Challenger systems and Reliant systems in the UltraSync portal. It has an option for remote access. This will now grant you access to the web interface of the Discovery directly. So it's a great way to manage your fleet of systems and get remote access without having to use any other software. I will detail setting up an UltraSync portal system in another video. Moving down this list, improvements is the advanced diagnostics and control. So now you have control over inputs, doors and areas through the Discovery web interface. You also have diagnostics in there, which we'll have a look at shortly. As usual, there's a few improvements. One of the bigger ones being is when you update to firmware 2.0, in some scenarios, enable ping and enable web interface were actually turned off in the menus of the Discovery, so it made it very hard to bring it back online. Those have been resolved now, so they should be on by default. A few other modifications coming in resolved an issue where the 4G modem would disconnect and needed to be disabled and re-enabled to reconnect. That's been resolved as well. It is worth noting that if you're upgrading from Discovery Firmware 1 to Discovery Firmware 2, there is a specific process that needs to be followed. In the market release notes that is detailed. It's also in the Aerotech support portal. The process of going from Discovery Firmware 1 to Discovery Firmware 2 I have detailed in another video. That can also be found at the Tecom support portal, support.firesecurityproducts.com.au, and then just do a search for Discovery Firmware Upgrade 2.0 Tech Note. This details quite extensively the requirements, some of the gotchas, and should be enough to get you through the process. First step of the upgrade is to download our firmware. For that, we go to aerotech.com.au, select Resources, Software Firmware, and then select the Discovery Firmware VTSX-2-85301. If this doesn't come up, you can filter by type, being firmware, brand, being Tecom. Once we've found our firmware, simply click on it. File is approximately 90 megabytes, not a big one. It's just an incremental update to build on the version 2 firmware already released. On logging to the Discovery, we want to go to Installer menu, Firmware Upgrade, upload our file by selecting the folder icon. Find the latest firmware version, upload file, Once the file upload is complete, you will get a flash and upgrade firmware button. Simply press that. This will let you know that it will reboot, ask if you want to continue, confirm. Upon completion of the firmware update, the Discovery will reboot. You'll notice your main keypad will go offline for about 10 seconds. It will then come back online and your web interface will go back to the login screen. You will actually see at the bottom of the screen, it will have the updated version of your firmware listed here, just to verify you have got the most recent version. Let's log in and have a look at the actual system. On this screen, we've got our What's New button. If we actually have a look at that, it goes into a little bit more detail than the market release notes. Something that it does say in here is that there's new comms path diagnostics. COM devices have diagnostics and improved mobile and tablet views. The mobile and tablet views of the Discovery web interface have been pretty good from the start, but obviously there's been some refinements to that. If we look at the installer menu and go into devices, and we've only got a RAS connected to this Discovery at the moment, so we'll just have a quick look at that. We now have an action button here. So from here, we can isolate at the push of a button. There's the ability to do a firmware update through this. Auto web-enabled firmware sync is still not available in Discovery. To update the firmware for, in this case, a touch RAS, you need to download the file from the Aerotech site. I just had a quick look at the site and it doesn't appear that those files are available on there yet. So this is a work in progress, but what you would do is, just like the Discovery update, you would download the file from Aerotech's website, upload it into the Discovery, and then flash the firmware onto the device. Going into the RAS settings itself, there's also a isolate button and a de-isolate button here, which reports the status as being online when it's isolated. There's also a poll error count, which you can reset from here as well. I've set up several standard doors to run off the onboard dual WGANs on the Discovery. They appear here. If I click into the three dots on the right hand side, I actually get access to all of my door functions. Currently, the unlock door function is not working. I'm not too sure if that's a software or firmware fault or if that's me. Being the first time I've set this up, I'm still sort of learning the process myself. The three dots down the side theme seems fairly consistent throughout the new firmware. If we're looking at inputs here, we click on the three dots and we get our input functions. So we can isolate it from here, reset acknowledgements, all the usual sort of control stuff. So that's been rolled out throughout. Same with relays. There's a direct action button just there, so we can click it immediately. You hear it click, or again, we can expand and get more options if there are more options available. Again, same thing with areas. There's a quick button that is unable to arm. It tells us why. We can also go into the advanced and it gives us stay disarmed, and it actually tells us there the status. Unsealed inputs, alarms active. So when we try and arm, it can't arm it because there's inputs that are not in the correct states. Looking at the inputs, we can manually isolate all inputs. Unfortunately, there's still no way to do a bulk isolate through the web interface. You have to actually go through every input individually. I've also noted that there's no alarm display or acknowledgement screens, except for going into the individual devices and acknowledging them through that. So that's probably something that needs to be still worked on, but definitely a lot of progress here. Having isolated all my inputs, I can now go to my area, and that should let me arm up without a problem, which it has. I'll also note that the area status is live, and that is giving me exit timer active, which is correct. Also tells me there's inputs in that area that are isolated. Another big change in here that I've noticed is if we go into our comms paths, create a new path. In the configuration types, we've got WMS Cloud Link, CSV format. They're two new formats that are in there, which I haven't seen before. From the doors menu, if you left click on any door, it will take you straight into the page for programming and give you all the action buttons. One thing I have noticed is that under RASes, the status is detecting devices as being online when they're not connected. There appears to be something there if they're polled when the system is started up but not connected, it just stays on online, so that will need to be addressed. So that sort of wraps it up. A few good features in there. Statuses and control is a really big thing. Still a bit of work to go, still some refinements needed, but definitely heading in the right direction. Thanks for watching.